The most basic auto maintenance you can do, an oil change. Made a little more of a pain in the butt by being a 4th gen F-body. So we're just going to do it real simple. First thing I'm going to tell you is when you're doing an oil change, the best way to do it is when the engine is basically cold, but you start it and run it for a couple of minutes, just enough to get the oil warm. Because then the oil will flow and you won't have to worry about burning yourself. Viscosity lowers when the engine temperature goes up. That's why that's usually like a 10. This is a 10W30 car, so we want that viscosity to be down to 10. That way the oil will flow freer and it'll get all of it out of the engine. Well, most of it. Second thing, notice where I have the jack stands. Yes, I do jack the car up. There's a nice beefy little piece of subframe that comes right before the engine bay here. And that's where I like to put my jack stands for raising this car. And of course, as always, if you're using jack stands, make sure that you rock the car before you get underneath it, just to make sure that the jack stands are steady. I also like to do a backup of keeping the jack slightly engaged on one side, just in case one of the jack stands fails. And you can see just about where that is. Just about behind where that plastic piece, and every Camaro and Firebird 4th Gen has that little piece. I don't know why it's getting dark. But there you go. Just behind it is a beefy piece of metal. Don't put it on that piece of plastic. That's just a body panel. But the metal behind it is a subframe, and that'll hold the weight of the car without a problem. Use good jack stands. Use a wheel chock. This is one of those solid rubber wheel chocks I got at Harbor Freight. Just kind of put it down and put the car in neutral and let it back roll into it until it stops. If it doesn't move anymore, you know you got a good hit on it. Now, on the 5.7 or the 350, depending on how you want to call it, takes 5 quarts of oil. Drain plug is right there. Takes a 9/16 inch ratchet to get it off. Shouldn't take a lot of force to get off, and you shouldn't use a lot to put it back on unless you want to strip the bolt. Good idea too, while you're under here, just kind of check things out, see if things you're looking at, see if anything looks nasty. And with that, let's get going on draining the oil. Since we've let the car sit for a few minutes now, we didn't warm it up to operating temperature, just enough to get the oil warm. Let's go ahead and loosen this. Looks like we had it pretty loose already. There we go. We got our nice stream oil coming out here. And we've got our nice oil plug. All right. Keep a lot of rags, which I didn't do right now. And just give it a few minutes for the oil to drain. Another thing you may want to look at is when you're draining the oil, pull the cap. It's air pressure and gravity. It helps it drain faster. Okay, while we're talking about the drain plug, notice how fine those threads are. That's why you don't want to over tighten it. Real easy to strip out. That's a real pain in the butt. Also, you see that I've installed a new washer. Here's the plastic washer. That's pretty common. But I'm going to try this new washer that's a metal washer with a rubber grommet. Or a nice rubber O-ring. That should seal even better. And it'll compress once it's tightened, just like that. But anything you can do, you should always use a washer. Unless there's an explicit direction not to, you should always use a washer on your drain plug, especially on older cars. Because that fit is not perfect and you could get seepage out between the threads of the plug itself and come out through the cap and you'll have a drip. So, that's it. Alright, let's talk about the oil filter real quick here. Probably the hardest thing you're going to do other than getting the car in the air is get the oil filter off. You've got a couple of choices. What I usually do is, if it'll work, I'll try to use this cap wrench. If you can find one that fits your oil filter. This one happens to be a Fram PH30, which is equivalent to an AC Delco PF25. So generally, most up to mid 90s V8s, GM V8s, this will probably fit. But sometimes this slips and doesn't work, and then you have to use a strap wrench. And pretty much the same thing, only it's going to wrap around the outside, and you just get leverage and break it free. It shouldn't take a lot. If you have to go to the old-fashioned screwdriver and hammer route, then somebody did you wrong. Okay, we're still dribbling a bit of oil out here, but we've pretty much got it all. Move this off to the side here, just so that the drip can still go into the pan and not the... Oh, that's another important thing. Make sure you got a good pan to catch the oil. This is an old kitty litter box, just because it holds more oil than the oil drip pan I have, but whatever works. We're going to try the cap wrench first. And the oil filter's right up here, not too far from the oil drain plug. And we just fit it on there. Let's see if we can get it started. And we did. It's working. You see, we just got to ratchet on there and just turn it. And the rest of the way we could do by hand. Now, oil's going to come out of this, so be aware. It's going to get a little messy. It's going to start dripping down the sides, just like that. I suggest you let it do it for a minute before you bring it out, unless you want to get a face full of oil. And I don't know about you, but I always do a filter change with an oil change. I don't leave it to chance. All right. Let's see. Get the initial rush out of there. This is usually the most messy part of it. And the oil is just warm enough to flow, but not so much to burn yourself. And then we'll just right into the pan. And while I'm doing that, let's talk a little bit about recycling. Can't get away with throwing this stuff down in a hole or in the trash can anymore. So don't try it. Get a suitable receptacle, and when it fills up, take it to your nearest auto parts store. AutoZone, Advance, any of those that are still around. They all have to, if they sell oil, they have to recycle it, so they have to take it. Same goes with transmission fluid, coolant, all that. So this is exciting, I know. All right. We're down to drip, 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 so we can put the plug back in. So take our plug right there. Start it off with hand tightening. Don't cross thread it. Should go easy. Again, remember my trick about threading in bolts. And that is, if they have hard to start them, go backwards, then forwards until they go in easily. And we have our little O-ring on. Tighten by hand to start. These usually have a very low, depending on your vehicle, have a very low torque value, usually in like inch-pounds. You don't need a lot. But we're going to go ahead and tighten that up a little bit. Just snug. Perfect. You see a little drip, no drip, drip, drip. So, and we'll check it again when we put the oil in, just to be sure. Now we can move on to putting the oil filter on. The light in here is terrible, but you'll see. All right, real basic thing. I've got a new quart. I always buy an extra quart of oil. You want to have it. Same type, same weight, same everything. And I always half fill. Now, some cars, they have a sideways oil filter, so this doesn't work out so well. But I always like to half fill the oil filter so you don't have a dry startup. Okay, and it's easier to do from this bottle than this bottle. But then you take a little bit of the oil and put it on the seal, just like that. Just a little bit of oil, just to help it seal. It's amazing how oil seals oil. I'm doing this one hand, so it's not as... Okay, we got a nice little coating of oil here, just to get the seal ready to go. Just a little more there. Then we'll install the plug. Now remember, we're going to hand tighten it. Follow the instructions. Okay, that's a little better. We've got our oil plug in, and we've got our filter in. You can see there it is, been on filter. The instructions for this one actually said 3 quarters of 1 turn past contacting the base. So now what we can do is start putting the oil back in and see if we got any leaks. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay. Well, this car goes in up here. Here's the oil fill plug. There's suitable funnel. Take the oil and slowly start introducing it. At this point, I've got about 4 quarts of oil into this thing. Maybe 3. That's enough to be down to the pan. So what we're looking for, to see if we've got any leaks. Feel it here, nothing there. Feel it around the top. Take a good look, see if there's anything dripping down from the oil filter. I don't see anything. I don't feel anything. Your hands are your best indicators. Nothing there. So I think we're good here. Let's check it real close. All right. That's the last of it. Going into our funnel. Now, the old oil, what do we do with it? Well, here's 2 options I'm going to give you. One is you could do like I do, get an old 5-gallon detergent bin bucket, and I put the old oil in there from here. Or you can try to put it back in the container it came in, which is more handy, but always makes more of a mess. I usually just like to put it in a 5-gallon bin and keep it till I'm ready to, when it fills up, and I'm ready to take it into the recycler. All right, we've put all the oil in, so we're doing our check for leaks again. See if there's anything drip, drip, drip. Not seeing anything here. Looking pretty good. Don't feel anything. No wetness here, nothing. Okay, checking the oil level. Looks like we're pretty much where we need to be, 5 quarts. Yeah, it's going to be less than that once it gets back up into cylinders. We really drain this thing good. But 5 quarts, so we didn't overfill it. Perfect. Now normally, if you went to the oil change place, they'd start it and check underneath, but I don't like starting a car on jack stands. So we'll get it off the jack stands first. Okay. Keep an eye on this gauge right here where my finger's dangling. I want to make sure it comes up. There we go. Good oil pressure. All right, as best we can, we're going to try to get a peek under there. As I said, once you take it off the jack stands, hard to see a lot. So what have we learned? Well, one thing I didn't tell you is that you should do is when you're looking at your oil in the old pan, which you should do, see if there's any grit. When you dump out most of the oil, see if there's any grit left behind. That kind of tells the condition of the motor. If you're, you know, like grinding up rings or something like that, or you got bearing shavings, that kind of thing. Now in this case there was nothing there, just oil, so that's a good thing. But good idea to check it. But in the end, really, it's something that should be done. Now intervals, if you're using conventional oil, yeah, stick to the 3-month, 3,000 mile thing. Whatever your manufacturer recommends. I think some are saying 5,000 miles now, but most newer cars are running a synthetic blend at the minimum, so the oil lasts longer. You should check. The oil interval changes aren't so much for the engine as they are the oil. The oil itself breaks down, and conventional oil tends to sludge and break down faster than synthetic oil will. Synthetic oil changes, I usually go anywhere from 5 to 7,500 miles, depending on condition. This change was right about in the middle. It was right around 6,000 miles. Car has not had hard miles on it though, so I'm not worried about it now. If it was being driven a lot in, you know, 105, 110 plus degree temps every day and day out, yeah, I'd probably be closer to that 5,000 mile mark on the oil changes. And as you'll see here, it's been running for a little while. And while we had that initial high oil pressure, it settled back down once the engine warmed up. And this has been idling for about 20 minutes now. So you can see it's come back down to around 20 psi, and we're at about 800 RPM. Standard rule of thumb is 10 psi per 1,000 RPM. So if you're at 20 sitting at idle, you're doing great. Anyway, that's it. That's the oil change. Hope this was helpful. Bye.